Hi, it's Mitch from PickDawgz.com, and it is Friday, May 31st, 2024, here with today's first 5 innings picks. No NBA to go over today, so we're just going to do Major League Baseball. We've got 15 games on the card, and we'll cover them all here. Of course, in this video, we also go over, just real quickly at the beginning, kind of our fun part. Today in history, the Sixers won the World Championship, closing it out 4-0 against the Lakers. It was Moses leading the Sixers to the promised land. Of course, the Doctor getting his NBA title as well. That was today in 1983. Anyways, let's beat the books and sweep them out today, coming off of yesterday's first 5 inning sweep. Can't promise that every day, but we're gonna batter the books all year and forever here doing these first halves and first 5 innings. Let's get right into it. We started all off with afternoon action at Wrigley Field as the Chicago Cubs are hosting the Cincinnati Reds. Neither of these teams hitting the baseball particularly well lately, but the Cubs have been dreadful at home, 2-6 in their last 8 at Wrigley. They got Assad going here up against Ashcraft for the Reds. Ashcraft definitely regressing numbers, 4.67 ERA for the season, 6.91 over his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, Assad going in the wrong direction as well, 2.17 for the season, but 3.45 over his last 3 starts. We look at how the Reds are hitting the baseball versus righties, just .214 versus right-handed pitching over their last 10 games, but the Cubs, a dreadful .209 versus right-handed pitching. Oh man, both these teams are certainly having their share of struggles, but I would say all of the value in this game is on the Cincinnati Reds, who have historically played pretty well at Wrigley. I'm going to roll with the Cincinnati Reds, take the nice value to get the day started, and that'll be my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Philadelphia, where the Phillies are taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. The Phillies returning home from that West Coast road trip. Didn't go all that well, but here they are with Aaron Nola on the bump up against Miles Mikolas on the mound for the Cards. Mikolas, well, he's a Cubs killer, not much of an other killer, but a 5.64 ERA on the season, 3.71 though over his last 3 starts, while Nola 3.04 for the season and 1.64 in his last 3 starts. The Cardinals have been miserable in their games in Philadelphia, going 2-9 in their last 11 in Philly, but they are 7-1 straight up in their last 8 games and hitting the baseball extremely well, including hitting .284 versus right-handed pitching over their last 10 games, while the Phillies have hit just .235 versus righties over their last 10 games. The thing is, the Phillies get back home. We know Nola usually gets hit in like the 4th inning. I gotta say, we'll probably see an over in this game, and that's gonna be my pick for the Phillies Cardinals. For our next game, we head to Baltimore for an American League East battle as the Orioles host the Tampa Bay Rays. It's Albert Suarez on the mound for the Orioles and Aaron Civale on the mound for the Rays. The Rays have really struggled recently. Really, their struggles compared to what most team struggles are, of course, aren't nearly as bad. But, the Rays come into this one with a sub 500 record, not something we're accustomed to seeing from them. They are 39-19 in their last 58 against the Orioles, but the Orioles, had a long run there where they weren't very good, and that trend goes out pretty far. And Civale has been pretty terrible for the Rays this season, 5.72 ERA, 5.28 over his last 3 games, while Suarez 1.53 for the season and 2.63 over his last 10 games. The Orioles certainly hitting the ball way better than the Rays are against right-handed pitching, 243 to 173 over their last 10 games. It is. I just don't like the way the Rays are playing. I'm going to take the Orioles, and that'll be my pick in the first 5. For our next game, we head to Toronto, where the Blue Jays are hosting the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Pirates, certainly a team on the rise, but at the same time, not quite there yet. Meanwhile, the Blue Jays, this is one of the more disappointing teams out there, sitting 3 games under 500 coming into this, with a pretty decent payroll to show for it. Pirates have had miserable luck in Toronto and really against the Blue Jays overall. They've lost 8 in a row against the Blue Jays and looking to end that streak here. They have not named their starting pitcher for this one, which makes first 5 innings a little bit difficult, but we're still going to do the best with what we have to work with as Jose Barrios gets the ball here for the Jays, hitting is 2.94 ERA for the season and 3.15 over his last 3 starts. The Jays are hitting righties at 264 and lefties at 273 over their last 10 games. The Pirates at 246 and 219. Jays look too strong here. I don't know what the odds or the pitchers are. I'll still take the Jays, and that'll be my pick for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Fenway Park in Boston, where the Red Sox are hosting the Tigers. It's Tanner Houck on the mound for the Red Sox, and Kenta Maeda gets the ball here for the Tigers. Maeda, generally a location guy, and, when he's not finding his location, he gets hit extremely hard, and that's what was happening over the early part of the season. Took a little break on the injured list, and now is back and actually looks pretty good. And, he was in that Cy Young discussion just a few years ago. Maeda has a 5.54 ERA over his last 3 starts, and Houck with a .96. We got to remember that Detroit generally has played pretty well in Boston, and Boston has not played well at home, even though the Tigers, though, in the grand scheme of things, 6-18 in their last 24 against the Red Sox. That includes a lot of games in Detroit. But the Red Sox hitting just 197 versus lefties, 220 versus righties over their last 10, and the Tigers 234 versus righties and 242 versus lefties. I'll take a shot at the big value here with the Tigers, and that'll be my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Cleveland, where the Guardians are taking on the Nationals. The Guardians send Tanner Bibee to the mound, while the Nationals send Patrick Corbin in the final year of that massive contract. Corbin checks in with a 6.12 ERA, 6.62 over his last 3 starts. Bibee 3.99 and 1.96 over his last 3 starts. Cleveland has been playing pretty well this season. They lead that American League Central, which has come up a lot tougher than most expected. 37-19 coming into this thing. They have been, just absolutely cold-blooded. The thing is that, the Guardians not really hitting the ball extremely well, hitting righties at just 229 and lefties at 234, while the Nationals are hitting righties at 244 over their last 10 games. Boy, they're crushing left-handed pitching, and the Guardians not going with a lefty in this game. I think there's some value here on the Nationals, but is there ever value on Patrick Corbin? I'm gonna take the Guardians here, lay a 1.5, and that'll be my pick for this one. For our next game, we head to Citi Field in New York, where the Mets are hosting the Diamondbacks. It was the Mets pulling off the upset on Thursday and look to make it 2 in a row. And this has been a team definitely going through some turmoil. They send Luis Severino to the mound for the Mets, and it's Jordan Montgomery on the mound for the D-backs. Montgomery does not look good this season, 4.69 ERA and a 4.67 over his last 3 starts, while Severino 3.22 ERA and 3.86 over his last 3 starts. Neither of these teams, playing all that well coming into this one, but the Diamondbacks absolutely stinking it up in New York, 8-21 in their last 29 games at Citi Field. Meanwhile, the Mets just 2-7 in their last 9 at home. Both these teams stink at Citi Field, and for the Mets, well, of course, it's their home field. Mets left against lefties have not been great this season, but actually been picking it up a little bit lately. 222 versus lefties over their last 10, while the D-backs 244 versus righties. Tell you what, I think the value here is on the home team. Going to take the Mets, and that'll be my pick for this game. For our next game, we head to Miami, where the Marlins are hosting the Texas Rangers. All kinds of lousy trends going on for both these teams coming into this game, but the Rangers, couple games under 500, the defending champs, and the Marlins, well, 17 games under. They send Sixto Sanchez to the bump for this one. Man, he took almost everyone to a full count in that last game against Arizona. He was his own worst enemy, but when he's on, oh man, is he one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. On the others, but we just don't see it enough. Jose Urena, former Marlin, on the mound for the Rangers, exceeding all expectations, with a 3.06 ERA over his last 3 starts. The Rangers have had success in Miami, going 7-2 in their last 9, but the thing is that the Rangers just 1-8 in their last 9 on the road, 2-6 in their last 8 interleague games. Yeah, this is a tough one because the Rangers hitting just 211 versus righties over their last 10, while the Marlins at 249. I think all the values on the home team. Going to take the Marlins, and that'll be my pick for this game. For our next game, we go to Atlanta, where the Braves are taking on the Oakland A's. If you saw my main video on this game, guys just don't play each other all that much. It's JP Sears on the bump for the A's, and Ronaldo Lopez moved back a day into the start for the Braves in this one. Lopez comes in with a 1.75 ERA, 2.25 over his last 3 starts, while JP comes in at 3.88 ERA and 2.93 over his last 3 starts. So both these guys pitching pretty well this season. The Braves 16-5 in their last 21 interleague games, but boy, since that Acuna Jr. Injury, they have not been playing well, and the A's 8-2 in their last 10 interleague games. So both these teams certainly bring some substance here. The Braves hitting .246 over their last 10 games versus left-handed pitching. The A's .239 versus righties, and I think that this game's going to be pretty tight in these early innings with these two pitchers going at it. I think it's hit or miss. I think it's basically a coin toss, and look at the value we're getting on the A's in a coin toss. I'll take the A's and the plus money, and that'll be my pick for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Kansas City, where the Royals are taking on the Padres. It's Dylan Cease on the bump for the Padres and Michael Wacha on the mound for the Royals. We know what Wacha is, and well, he's a walk-up machine, and the thing is, he's been pitching actually a little bit better recently than his course has been for the season. A 4.31 ERA dropping to a 2.37 over his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, Dylan Cease going in the other direction, 3.29 ERA, all the way up to a 6.61 over his last 3 starts. But Cease has played some pretty tough competition in there, but still, he's a better pitcher than that. We look at, how these teams are hitting right-handed pitching, and the Padres just .221 versus righties over the last 10. The Royals .246, but the last thing I want to do, even as a home dog, is lay money on a guy like Michael Wacha, who we know that 2.37 over his last 3 starts just poises him in perfect position for a regression. I'm going to take the Padres first 5. That's going to be my pick in this game. For our next game, we head to Houston to Minute Maid Park, where the Astros are taking on the Twins. It's Ronel Blanco on the bump for the Astros. It is Pablo Lopez on the mound for the Twins. Of course, Blanco, a couple games back now from that suspension for using the sticky stuff, but it still certainly hasn't really affected him much. 1.72 ERA in his last 3 starts, 1.99 for the season. Meanwhile, Lopez, 5.25 ERA for the season, 9.0 over his last 3 starts. I believe Lopez has been, throughout his career, one of the more overrated pitchers in all of the game. The thing is, the Astros, get back home, and generally at home, they haven't been as strong as on the road. They do hit righties, though, at a 2.57 clip over their last 10 games, 2.59 for the season, so it's been consistent. While the Twins, 237 versus righties over their last 10, 219 for the season. I just think this is a mismatch any which way that you slice it. I'm taking the Astros first 5. I think it's a layup. For our next game, we head to Milwaukee, where the Brewers are taking on the White Sox. Of course, it was an emotional series for the Brewers as they beat the Cubs 3-1 during this past week. And now in come the other Chicago team, the Southsiders, the White Sox, who have always played well in Milwaukee, 10-4 in their last 14 games in Milwaukee, but just 1-7 in their last 8 games against the Brewers. So the bulk of those games, the recent games, have been played on the South Side, while over time, the White Sox have played well in Milwaukee. I don't know if that factors or not, but Eric Fede gets the bump here for the White Sox. Tobias Myers on the mound for the Brewers. I think Myers is the bottom of the rotation guy here for the Brew Crew. 4.43 ERA, 4.76 over his last 3 starts, while the White Sox, Fede, 2.80 for the season and 2.33 over his last 10. The White Sox are not hitting righties all that well, 196 over their last 10 games, and the Brewers hitting righties at 241, but Fede's a tough customer. I like the White Sox in the first 5 of this game, and that's going to be my pick. For our next game, we head to Chavez Ravine, where the Dodgers are taking on the Rockies. It's Walker Buehler on the bump for the Dodgers and Dakota Hudson on the mound for the Rockies. The Dodgers generally a way better home team than they have been on the road. They, a lot of people in the YouTube comments seem to think they win every game, but they're 19-11 at home this season, while the Rockies just 7-21 on the road. And the Rockies have certainly been playing pretty well, but that most of their best play has been at home. Buehler really hasn't been the same pitcher since returning from the injured list, but he is improving. A 4.26 ERA goes down to 3.60 over his last 3 starts, while Hudson for the Rockies, Dakota Hudson, 5.54 for the season and 3.86 over his last 3 starts. You know, the Dodgers hitting 232 versus righties, the Rockies hitting 228. I like the way the Rockies are playing and are hitting the baseball. I'll tell you what, I think this game just goes over, and that's going to be my pick for the first 5. For our next game, we head to Seattle, where the Mariners are taking on the Rangers. It's Brian Wu on the mound here for the Mariners, and it is Jose Soriano on the mound for the Angels. You know, Soriano has pitched pretty well, 3.61 ERA for the season and 2.37 for his last 3 starts, while Brian Wu has been off the chain, 1.66 ERA on the season, 2.08. Both these pitchers absolutely lights out. You know, when it comes to hitting, though, the Angels have really been hitting decently. 205, though, versus righties over their last 10, and 185 for the Mariners over their last 10. It's versus left-handed pitching, where the Angels have really been doing most of their damage, and that is a little bit of the problem in this one, because I think both these pitchers just are really dealing right now, and I think Soriano is one of these guys who might be a little bit underrated. I know most of the value here is on the Angels, who are 6-2 straight up in their last 8 road games, but it's tough to go against Wu. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of runs. I'm going to roll with the under in the first 5, and that's going to be my pick for this game. For our final game of today's card, we head to San Francisco, where the Giants are taking on the Yankees. Jordan Hicks gets the ball for the Giants. Marcus Stroman on the mound for the Yankees. Looking at the way Stroman's pitched recently, a .47 ERA over his last 3 starts. Meanwhile, Hicks, no slouch either, 2.40 over his last 3. He's got a 2.33 for the season, and Stroman at 2.76. These are 2 guys that are pitching extremely well over the first half of the season. Looking at the way these teams are hitting the baseball, it's also very even over the last 10 games. Giants 251 to the Yankees 256, and that's versus right-handed pitching. When you look at left-handed pitching, well, it's the Giants who have the edge there. And overall hitting, the Giants hitting 247 over their last 10, and the Yankees hitting 246. This game is splitting hairs, but when you're getting plus money with the home team in a game that looks to be a coin flip, well, I'll take the home team and the plus money. I'm going to roll with the Giants, and that'll be my pick for the first 5. That wraps up our first 5 innings picks for today. This is Mitch, of course, and I'll be back tomorrow with more first 5 inning picks for you. And of course, once the NBA finals start, we'll be doing the first halves of those games as well. But, of course, if you're looking for our best bets, you find those over at PickDawgz.com. You click on the Premium Picks tab. You can use the discount code PICK for 15% off. Of course, if you're looking for cool PickDawgz merch, like the stuff that I wear and the other guys wear, like this zip up and this hat, they're all for sale on the website. Just click on the merch tab. Also got a link in the description for the premium picks as well as the merch. This is Mitch once again. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Love doing these videos with you guys each and every day. Let's crush the books.